going to do is talk about Matvei Michkov.
Okay.
This is the thing I took most from this is Danny's face when the Michkov situation came up. I believe we captured it pretty well here. And Danny's
love that.
Yeah, he smiles a lot. But I don't
that is absolutely a shit-eating grin.
Yes. And just the way he initially held a straight face and pursed his lips and then just went into this grin. I don't know. Again, this is the dumbest. Yesterday we were breaking down the clothes a 19-year-old is wearing.
Yep. Sure were.
This is going to be fucking silly until we have resolution here. But I'm feeling it, man. And he was
feeling good vibes here.
We were told, and it was we heard in that article that came out months ago now at this point, by the end of June, we'll have something from this.
Yeah, and it was a good question by Jackie the Inquirer. Basically was is that actually the deadline? And Danny's point is I don't friggin' know. Yeah. And he's right. I think the deadline, it's more self-imposed because SKA St. Petersburg, they want to know one way or the other by the end of June whether this guy is going to be in the mix for them.
Hey, you got that money?
Yeah, they want to know. From my understanding is that their training camp starts around the end of July. So they want a month. They would like to have the knowledge of whether we have to find a spot for this guy or we have to work on a loan or whatever. They'd like to know. That said, I don't think it's if it's not done by June 30th, it's not happening. They could theoretically terminate the contract at any point.
Ivan Fedotov's contract got terminated in March.
Yeah, exactly. They can terminate that contract any day they want, as long as they are sufficiently motivated to do so.
And I thought you had a good kind of this was the follow-up about you've navigated Fedotov, you're dealing with the Michkov situation. You're not that worried about dealing with Russian players, basically. And Danny said, I think we've shown we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID, number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your Director of Fun and Games for the evening. Joining me, as always, on this little bonus show, I guess we're going to call it, even though it's Monday, and it would typically be our first show. Scheduled off day. So joining me on this bonus show is Charlie O'Connor, Mr. Number One Beat Reporter. 24 hours later, how are we feeling knowing that we're going to be watching Matvei Michkov come the fall?
I'm excited. It's going to make this season a lot more fun. To be sure, it certainly increased fan interest. People who have sworn off the Flyers for an extended period of time, I think, will at the very least give them another look. That said, look, I still believe this is going to happen. However, I did not expect that by 1 p.m. on Monday, after everything that went down yesterday, that we would still be waiting on a final report from SKA St. Petersburg. I'm not concerned. I just don't understand why they haven't reported it
yet. God damn it, Charlie. I know. No, it is. I wouldn't say concerning, but it's all right, man, let's go. I already, we're talking about buying jerseys and designing shirts and stuff. And it's I want to know what number this guy's wearing. It's well, he still has to sign on the line. There still has to be the final, okay, contract is terminated. This whole thing's done. And then he has to get on a plane and come here. And then he has to sign his, things still need to happen. But that clip we played the previously on to start the show, I do have to apologize to some for lying to the audience. I try not to do that, but it seems that I did. In the clip, I said, this is going to be silly until we have some resolution. No. It's going to get far fucking sillier. This is Michkov Mania is already running wild. And like Charlie started the show saying, it's not even really 100% yet. Are we? You don't think we've jumped the gun and in a couple of days we're going to be doing a show where it's fuck, do you?
Well, look, I can tell you that if if it doesn't go down, the Flyers very much believed yesterday it was going to go down. And the amount of national writers who at some point during the course of yesterday ultimately were also able to get, I would assume, was independent confirmation. Like, I think it was LeBrun who seemed to have confirmation straight from SKA St. Petersburg, where he basically said that they are positioning this as, we're doing him a solid because of his dad and giving him a chance to play in the NHL. We talked about this, about how they're going to sell it in Russia as if they are the good guys here, giving this kid a chance. But that struck me as something that they didn't get from the Flyers. They got that from SKA. So it would shock me if this doesn't happen. We're so far down the road. You just wonder if there's a scenario where one person didn't get their taste of as much money as they wanted, and that's what's holding it up. I don't think it's not going to happen. It's just I'm a little surprised that we haven't gotten final confirmation from SKA St. Petersburg that the contract has been terminated and now it's all about signing the ELC. You just hope that someone didn't get ticked off at the last minute and they're asking for a little bit more to keep them happy.
We got to get Hilferty over there himself to run some fucking fiber optic lines straight to whoever's house needs them. Do the stuff Comcast does. That's probably part of Spectacor's purview, right? That's it's always fun to conflate the two. But so I guess now with honestly, I want to go back. That the positioning by SKA I find very funny because Michkov did not want to be loaned to Sochi because that's where his dad passed away and he just didn't want to go. And now, we did that, but now because of that whole situation, we're going to let him go pursue his dreams because we're obviously this benevolent organization that cares so much about the mental well-being of this young man. I just find that positioning rather humorous, but whatever the fuck gets him here, I'm cool with. So yesterday we heard a little bit about the timeline, Charlie, and we during our show we were like, "Oh, could he be here for development camp?" That doesn't seem likely now.
I have heard that it's unlikely. Not that it's completely impossible, but that he is going to have to get through some visa things. And I had some people in Discord ask me, well, don't they have lawyers? Can't they expedite it? And here's the thing. I guarantee you that once there is a contract in place and they have all of the paperwork proving that he now is employed by a entity in North America, I guarantee you that CAA, his new agencies, that's Pat Brisson and Barry, so two of the power brokers, I guarantee you they and the Flyers will have all that paperwork where it needs to be as quickly as possible. The problem is that the whole thing with a visa is it just comes down to how quickly the people on the other side process it. And that can take some time. It took some time with Kolosov in particular. So it seems like it's unlikely that even if there's an entry-level contract signed, because he doesn't have to be in the United States to sign an entry-level contract.
No, that's true.
We had faxes, 50 years ago? Now we have email. It's not necessary that he has to sign this in person with Danny Briere and Heath Jones over his shoulder. He could sign it remotely. However, maybe they will want him to wait until he's here because they want the pageantry. I don't know.
Yeah. If he does a DocuSign, there's going to be a fake fucking piece of paper that they have a picture of him signing. There's absolutely going to be. He could have already signed it. Guess what? He's signing some sort of piece of paper when he gets here, Charlie, to make this thing official. And that's again, I'm all for the pageantry. I'm all for this silliness. This is way cooler than. I was just thinking, talking to. I did the Gargano show this morning, Charlie, and I asked you, is this the biggest story you've ever covered? And you're like, well, it's the best positive story.
It's the best good one,
with the Flyers. And I was just like, I've been. Happy, I guess, as a Flyers fan a few times in recent years, the Ryan Ellis trade, but we all know how that went. The lottery, we all know how that went. Great.
God,
And then there's
being a Flyers fan, man.
Then there's things like Chuck Fletcher getting fired, Dave Haxtell getting fired, Andrew McDonald getting bought out. Yeah, those are all like, okay, good. They did something I wanted them to do, but it was all because of like shit that sucked. Like, I would have much rather all those guys been a success and them still be here, but they weren't. And this is such a big good thing for the Flyers that, you know, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Like, Claude Giroux, by some might be underrated in this town, but he wasn't like a highly touted prospect. It was, oh man, we have this kid and he's pretty fucking good, but like we got him in the 20s, you know? The Bobby Clark didn't know his name when he went up to draft him. And then all of a sudden he was here and he was really good and then he became better. There was no hype train. Like, JVR drafted 2nd overall. It was like, okay, he's not Patrick Kane, so cool. Like, this is the biggest hype train sort of prospect since Lindros. And I hate to compare the two because Lindros was the next one. Like, he was supposed to be Gretzky and Mario. He's next. That's not what Michkov is, but sorta. Like, he's closer to that than just another, okay, we got a guy.
I think that Lindros absolutely, and I didn't live through the Lindros hype train, but I've read a ton about it. I've talked to people who were involved in it. It's not to that level because, as you say, Lindros was viewed generational. Like that, he was truly supposed to be the next great player. And Michkov, people view extremely highly, but it's not like the hype that Bedard got. That would have been Lindros. The hype that it might have even been similar to McDavid, honestly. Like, just that same idea. And also, there was just a feeling back then, like, well, obviously, all these guys pan out because we've seen Gretzky and Lemieux become all-time greats. So whenever we're told these guys are going to be that good, they always become that good. There was an expectation. But what I do think makes this comparable in terms of the level of excitement from Flyers fans is that the lean times leading into it have been longer. And there were lean times leading into the Lindros thing. Like, you know, after the 80s team kind of fell apart, they had those years where they missed the playoffs a few times, and I'm sure people were very frustrated. But, like, 1987, 88 wasn't that long before.
No.
It wasn't that long before when they got Lindros.
They went to 6 cups in the previous 15 years? We've been to 2 in our lifetime, Charlie. Like, you know, that's maybe one for you. Like, it's a little. No, you were alive in 97. No,
I was not. Sure. Oh, 97.
97.
Yeah.
97,
oh, I think you say 87.
Yeah.
I was like, definitely not 87.
I wasn't around for that one either. So we've been to 2 cups in our lifetime. They went to like 6 in the previous 15 before Lindros. Like, it's a little different now. And that leads me to the expectations. I don't know if you saw it, but right before we went live, I saw Mike Sealski put out an article that was just like, maybe chill out a little bit. And honestly, we don't have Coors Light today. It's an emergency show. So I'm not going to tell people to chill. Like, yes, expectation should not be that this guy comes in and scores 100 points. Like, he doesn't turn 20 until December. This is a young kid who is nowhere near a finished product yet. But expectations are incredibly high. What is realistic for us, Charlie? Like, what do you think we should kind of maybe set as the bar? Like, do you think he wins the Calder? Let's start there. Like, do you think he comes in and he's the Calder Trophy winner?
I'm not expecting that. It's not off the table. Certainly not off the table. He is talented enough where he could, you know, put up 65, 70 points in his rookie year. And we're all like, holy shit, this dude's already one of the best players, you know, on the team, if not the best player on the team. That's possible. I'm not expecting it. It would be a nice surprise. I would say I'd be expecting something like, you know, in that like 45 to 55 point range. I'm expecting, you know, just because this is John Tortorella, I'm expecting some occasional clashes with Torts. I'm expecting, you know, some benchings, maybe not for a game, but maybe for a period. Like, I'm expecting that to be part of the experience because you know what? This is what we all signed up for when you go with the John Tortorella experience. You sign up for the John Tortorella being hard on the young players. There will be drama. Let me put it that way. I don't think there will be blood, but there will be drama because
They're
of
old.
course there is, because it's the Flyers. So I'm not necessarily expecting Michkov to be blow away good from the jump. There are some concerns about size. There are some concerns about aspects of his game he will have to adjust to succeed at the highest level of hockey. But I'm expecting him to be good. I would be disappointed I would be very disappointed if the first half of his rookie year goes like the way the first half of Nolan Patrick's rookie year went, where he just couldn't do shit. Then you're like, oh God. I'm expecting him to flash the high-end skill, and I'm expecting his end-of-season numbers to look pretty good, but I'm not going in with the expectation that he's going to be a point per game right off the bat, although that'd be really cool if he was.
It would be. I guess like the Torts stuff, it goes hand in hand with expectations because like one impacts the other tremendously.
Yeah,
I will say though, like we put out the Mad Russian t-shirts and hoodies, and there's still some of those left at PHLYlocker.com. More Michkov stuff incoming. Be on the lookout for Michkov merch. You want it, you're going to get it from us, but we do have some of the Mad Russian stuff from when John Tortorella talked about the change that he implemented in the offense this year, and we all saw it. 2 seasons ago, this team was only concerned with playing defense. The offensive strategy was like, I don't know, man, go figure it out. But we need structure on our side of the red line, and especially our side of the blue line. We're not going to be able to do anything before we get that. Tortorella implements that, and then this past season says we need to open up this offense because scoring's already hard enough for us. We don't have very many good players. We need to make it a little easier to score. And they implemented this rushed base offense. And he himself, John Tortorella, said, we need to be ready when the Mad Russian gets here. He implemented a rushed base system. Now, yeah, it is a lot based on like, hey, we block a ton of shots. Let's turn our, challenging at the blue line into chances the other way. Like that makes sense. But John Tortorella wanted an offense that suits the skills of this guy. Is it possible? There's going to be some sort of clash, because he's going to fuck up defensively. Everybody does. Sean Couturier made mistakes defensively sometimes. That shit happens. But is his skill so high that maybe Torts is just like, yeah, what can you do? He told us he puts up with TK because he's the only one on the team that can score. This guy, you got to believe he has this high-end offensive upside. Maybe he'll be a little more lenient than with, a Morgan Frost who all right, man, he's a 45-point player at the end of the day,
I think he's going to be more lenient, to be sure. And I think truthfully, a lot of that probably will come from above. For example, every time I spoke with Flyers people about some of the crazy moves that Torts made in terms of scratching guys, in terms of all that, it was generally said look, Torts is the coach. He makes the decisions. Are we consulted on them? Of course we are. But we're not ready to overrule him because we trust that he knows what he's doing. Michkov's situation is different because number one, he is the guy. That's number one. And you don't want to ruin the relationship with the guy. Number two, and this is also a very, very key part of this, yes, they will have him under contract. That will be huge. They will have him on an entry-level contract. But the Russian players still have the threat of going home. And a KHL team would take him back in a heartbeat, and Briere knows this. If Michkov were to just decide, I can't stand this coach, I can't play for him anymore, they might just fire Torts. But there's also the risk of then, if you do that, then does Michkov then think he can do whatever the hell he wants? Because, well, I guess if I'm bigger than the coach, then I never have to listen to anybody. So I think the Flyers will not necessarily treat him with kid gloves. I don't think they want to do that. But John Tortorella could scratch Joel Farabee if he wanted to, and Danny be like, yeah, it's fine. I do not think that the decision to scratch Matvei Michkov would come without every single person being like, okay, John, we've talked about this a lot, and you've done everything you can possibly do before making this drastic decision, and we're all confident that he's going to respond to this in a positive way rather than a negative way. Like, those kinds of decisions will be group decisions in a way that towards this past season, I don't think had to necessarily answer to like Dan Hilferty when he decided he was going to sit Morgan Frost for a game. Like with Michkov, he very well might have to. So that's going to play into it, I think.
What if I see this from Dylan Phillips? I want to get to this before I ask the next question. What if Matvei Michkov is the key to unlocking Frost as a 1C? I look at that possibility the way I look at, and Morgan Frost is a better player than Michael Raffl, a better offensive player than Michael Raffl, certainly. But I look at that as, all right, we have Jake and G in their prime, so we gave him Raffl. It's like, hey, man, they got 21 goals out of this guy. Great job. Maybe that's the type of 1C. It's like baseline, first-line competence out of Morgan Frost you would get playing him with Michkov and, let's say, Forster or Tippett or something. Cool. That's the bare minimum. But, like, imagine if you had a real 1C. Then you unlock both guys. Like, imagine instead of the best goal scorer Giroux playing with being Scott Hartnell, and he got him to 37. Like, it's an actual goal scorer, and he scores 45, 50. Like, that's what I'm looking at. Like, I'm looking at those as similar situations. Yes, hopefully Michkov, and maybe not right away, but gets to a point where it's like, yeah, our 2C has production like a 1C because Michkov is so good. Cool, but that means an actual 1C would have production like a fucking superstar, even if he's just a like Couturier 4 years ago 1C.
Yeah, look, I am totally fine with them going into next season with Morgan Frost as kind of a penciled in Michkov first experiment. Because I do think maybe there's more there with Morgan Frost. Look, the puck skills have always been there. The problem with him, for the most part, has been pace and consistency. He's mostly fixed the defense to the point where, like, he is, I wouldn't quite call it a strength of his game, but it's not a weakness anymore. He plays faster, and he's getting, like, you can't get harsher treatment than what he's getting from John Tortorella. And Frost is somehow hanging in there. Like, you can't kill this kid. He just keeps on coming back for more, despite however much John Tortorella throws at him. It would be nice if he got, like, there's a part of me, and I very much do not believe this to be the case. Like, I do not believe that the universe is fair and just. I think it's random and chaotic. But there is a part of me that really wishes it was fair and just. And it does feel like justice. If after all the shit that Morgan Frost got put through the last few years of his career, if he gets the cosmic reward of getting to play with Matvei Michkov and having his stats then inflated because Michkov is just that damn good, it would feel like justice.
Going into a contract year. Like, he's due a contract anytime between July 1st and a year from July 1st. Like, he's going to be signing a contract of some kind. Playing with Michkov would be quite the reward for sticking it out with this team.
Yeah.
I also think the door prize would be being part of the package that gets sent to Anaheim for Trevor Zegras, and then him and Cutter just get to sit there and go, Jesus, that fucking organization, huh? Like, they could really bond over that and become a duo over how ridiculous they believe the Flyers to be. Before we go into what's next, Charlie, I want to look at how we got here, because the last couple of months have been so ridiculous, and Brenna put a timeline together for us. That's a lot of fun. We go back to April 30th, and we see all the things that have unfolded. It was the end of April when SKA president Medvedev said they're not ruling out the possibility of Michkov coming to leaving and coming over to the NHL. Decision will be made the end of June. Then all through May, we get these little tidbits here and there. Danny saying we haven't talked to him since the draft, which was funny. Then there's reports from Sports Express and Rottenberg saying things like, we just get all this, and it really kind of started to dry up at the end of May. And then we got a few more things happen as we made our way to the end of May into June. And it was June where it really started to slow down. You know, it was, all right, we're supposed to hear something at the end of the month, and most of the month has gone by, and we've heard very, very little until we get to last Thursday, June 20th. There we go. Yeah. So we had some Instagram posts. We had all the, the exit interview stuff. And then on June 20th, Danny Briere's face. Beautiful. And then just yesterday, Charlie, I threw your tweet in there, but obviously we need to credit Hockey News Hub, Anthony DeMarco, the National People, LeBrun, Friedman, whoever. But Charlie had this, basically confirming the news that Michkov was going to be leaving St. Petersburg for Philly. This has been, I can't compare anything we've done to this. Like, there's been nothing. We've been together a while. I can't think of anything that was quite like this timeline of 2 to 3 months of craziness.
But this is what it was always going to be. When they made the pick, this was what it was always going to be because of how weird it is over in Russia. It was going to be fans scouring social media and his Instagram and trying to parse what the hat he wore means. And it was going to be rumors popping up on Russian language sites, and everybody's doing the crappy Google Translate. And then people freaking out because the crappy Google Translate translated a word wrong, like it was where they were like, if he's not on the first line, we're not going to let him go. In reality, when in reality it was first team, as in if he's not in the NHL, we don't want to let him go. This was always what was going to happen because that's the way it works with these Russian players. That's why there are a lot of teams that are hesitant to do it, because it's a circus. It just is, especially now with the invasion of Ukraine, increasing the geopolitical tensions, and the memorandum of understanding being suspended between the NHL and the KHL. There is now no formal process. There is nothing. It just comes down to what happens, whatever the KHL team wants to do, whatever the NHL team can do on the side, whatever the player can negotiate with the team. It's basically like the Wild West, except it's the Wild East. And it was always going to be weird. So while I didn't certainly predict the nature of the weirdness, I knew it was going to be strange. And the fact that these 2 months have been very odd, it shouldn't have come as a major surprise.
Are you reading some of these comments, Charlie? Because they're very funny. J Money says Charlie is my Matvei Michkov. And then someone else, Nathan Smith says Charlie is more like Gretzky. Everyone's in a good mood. When we're treating the journalists well, right? Everyone's in a great mood.
No, thanks, everyone.
I want to talk a little about the draft and everything. Charlie, O'Connor, McDavid. There you go.
Pretty
good. Before we get to the draft stuff, you mentioned you think it would be a good cosmic reward for Morgan Frost, and I don't disagree. He's the most skilled center on the team, so it makes sense to put him on a line with Michkov and try to maximize both guys. But who do you think? Because you've watched tape on the guy, you've watched him play. Who do you think are the best fits on the current roster to play alongside Michkov?
I mean, the dream line I have in my head, I guess in the short term, I would really like to see a line of Forrester, Frost, Michkov, because I do think that they would need some size and some ability to drive play, some defensive acumen. And Forrester, despite being young, already shows that. I mean, he's strong along the boards. Tortorella has said multiple times he might be our best player along the boards already. And he's only going to get stronger as he moves into his mid to late 20s. So having him provide that kind of support to Michkov, and then also give Michkov, because Michkov, I've said this on multiple occasions, I think Michkov at heart wants to score goals. That he is more of a pure goal scorer than a pure playmaker. But he can still make plays. He can still set up line mates. And Morgan Frost is very much not a pure goal scorer. He's a pure passer. it would be nice to give Michkov the opportunity to pass to someone who does have a nose for the net and who does have a plus shot, who can turn some of his passes into goals too, because I'm expecting Tyson Forster to take a step forward next year. I very much am. That could be a really fun line. Like my kind of dream is like you get a 1C, like a real 1C, and then your future first line is, Forster, whoever that 1C is, Michkov. And there's your top line forever.
Linden 49, Habs fans, I can speak. Habs fans are pissed. Exciting time in Flyerland.
Are they ever not mad though? I know they're especially mad now, but I feel like mad is their default. Like that's their standing reaction.
I am in a mode right now where I couldn't give a shit about any other fan base. Listen, in a few hours, one fan base in this league is going to be happier than any other. We're going to be a close second still, I think. But like, if it's not like, I don't even care that they made the decision. Like, thanks. Like, you can be mad. I guess that means you're upset with your own decision. If you're mad at the Flyer, like, okay, that means you don't believe in Reinbacher a whole lot, I guess. I like, they don't. Habs fans don't come to mind at all right now. I'm happy for us because it's been so long since we've had literally like anything good, Charlie.
I do think the people who are most cognizant of how angry Habs fans are the people who are extremely online because they've been fighting with Habs fans for the better part of a year about Michkov. And this is like this is the culmination of all those debates about he's never going to come over. He's got character concerns. That actually, I want to speak to the character concerns thing because that was an interesting tidbit, I thought, in Kevin Kurz's article he did this morning, looking back on the draft pick. And a lot of it was stuff that, and this isn't me like shitting on Kevin by any means, but like, because he wasn't on the beat in June. Like last June. A lot of it was rehashing stuff that had already been reported, but there were a couple tidbits that were legitimately new. And one that I found really interesting because I never had dug this up or even really asked anybody about the specifics, but it does speak to a big reason why Montreal, I believe, passed on Michkov because they had heard what they believed to be pretty concerning stories about his character, specifically how he meshed with his teammates. There were some stories around the draft that were some pretty big conflicts between him and his teammates. That like there were some teammates he really, really didn't get along with that did not have good things to say about Matvei Michkov in Sochi. And apparently the Flyers had heard these rumblings too, unsurprisingly. And they apparently, per the article, they grilled him about these things. And the answers that Michkov gave, what Kevin reported in the story, was that Michkov admitted, according to the source, that he needed to learn that not everyone was on his level, that his teammates' inability to do certain things on the ice didn't stem from a lack of commitment or dedication to hockey. If there were ever feelings of frustration for Michkov, they were simply born from his competitiveness. Now, it remains to be seen if that's actually true. Like maybe in 4 years, we're talking about how Michkov failed because he's just a dick. But that is a very good answer and an explanation as to why those stories may have been true, but also don't necessarily portend that he is going to be a nightmare in the NHL as a teammate.
And listen, maybe, like you said, there's more to it than that, and he's an asshole, and it just, whatever. But I've said so many times, like about the locker room in the recent past, like, hey man, we're all friends, we get along, and like, you know what? No, Claude Giroux should hate fucking everybody. They've all wasted his prime. He should be mad at everybody but Jake Voracek because they all fucking wasted the best years of his career. And it's like he's nice, he's a good guy. Like maybe he shouldn't be. I'm not saying that like, oh yeah, he's a leader. He's going to be the captain of this team. But I think you need a little bit of that. And the way that the Flyers are, we've talked about this, they like everyone to be a little uncomfortable. They don't like, okay, we're going to have Kumbaya. We're going to have this nice coat. No, we're going to bring in John Tortorella. We're going to do this sort of shit that makes everyone a little bit uncomfortable. And that's how you get better, by exceeding your comfort zone. I'm in the afterglow of this thing now. We're getting this great player, so I'm going to spin it to the way I want to. But the way I want to look at it right now is good. He should be yelling at the players who aren't fucking good because they shouldn't be around him. We should have nothing but good players and not a whole bunch of dudes wasting everyone's time like we've had for the last decade. Like, that's how I'm looking at this thing. And I hope he's that way with this team because they desperately, desperately need it. The other part of this, Charlie, we're talking about these character concerns, and Flyers had no problem drafting this kid at 7. I mean, like, if he was supposed to go 2 or 3 and he falls to 7, like, you take him and just cross your fingers, you know? But
Sure.
We're hearing similar things about Demidov, maybe not character concerns, but all of a sudden it's like, hey, there's rumblings about maybe he's not big enough. Maybe he can't do this or that. I don't know. Maybe the Flyers are the team that are spreading these rumors so that they can get their guys where they want them rather than like having to tank to get them. Just a thought. I'm just saying, maybe we do this all again with Demidov.
I don't think so. I don't think so. My understanding, I put out a mock draft at allphly.com for the first 16 picks. That's actually free for everybody. Tomorrow's second half will be diehards only. That'll be picks 17 through 32. But based on what I've heard and also what I've been reading from people I trust, it seems like the top 5 is kind of coming together. Now, the order might not be fully known, but it seems like the top 5 right now is looking, it's going to be some order of, obviously Celebrate is going to go 1. It's looking like number 2 is either going to be Lev Shunov or Demidov. And if Demidov doesn't go 2, I don't think he slips past Montreal at 5. And then 3 and 4 are looking like Salayev and Lidstrom. And, you know, maybe Demidov goes 4 to Columbus, but if he goes 4 to Columbus, Montreal's taking Caden Lidstrom at 5. So it's looking like that's your top 5 in some order. Now, look, is it possible that people freak out about Demidov for reasons? I guess. But number one, the size concern, I think, got dealt with a lot when he went to the Gold Star camp last week and he measured in at 6'1". That surprised a lot of people. Yeah. And like, that's not huge, but it's not small. Suddenly he is an average size NHL player. So that concern is kind of out the window. Number 2, I get the sense that he interviewed very well. And he interviewed with like a lot of teams. So it's not like the Michkov situation where he really only talked to a couple and the Flyers are the only one he visited. So a lot of teams just were kind of in the dark. Like Arizona, he was, from what I understand, he straight up told Arizona, you can pick me. I am never signing with you. So like they were not going to take him, certainly. And like understandably so, they ain't even in Arizona anymore. I get why he didn't want to go there. So I get it. But point being is that I don't get the sense that Demidov has the same kinds of concerns. I think Michkov's ceiling is higher than Demidov's, and I really like Demidov. I think he's going to be a really good player. But I like Michkov's skill set more. But I don't get the sense that there is the same consternation surrounding Demidov that there was surrounding Michkov. Number 1, not the same character concerns. Number 2, he's bigger. Number 3, and this is important, the Russian factor doesn't seem as daunting anymore because the Flyers just got Michkov over most likely in a year. And Fedotov isn't hanging out on an aircraft carrier anymore. He's over here too. Those are the 2 guys who everyone was like, well, don't take Russians. That could happen. And now it looks like the Flyers might have both of them. So suddenly the Russian factor doesn't seem as scary anymore.
No, that's like the reason Demidov might fall to them. They kind of ruined for themselves by solving the problem. Like, if Fedotov isn't here and we don't have resolution on Michkov, like maybe Demidov does fall, but since both of those things appear to have gone the Flyers' way, maybe there's a little less consternation. Just real quick, this super chat from Ed Wright, and then we're going to wrap it up, Charlie. Is there a path to acquire 7th overall without losing 12th? My answer to that is yes. It's Travis Konechny, who I don't think they're trading.
Yeah, I don't even know if that would do it. Like,
what?
I don't know if Otto would trade a 7th overall pick for Konechny. It would be a fair ask for the Flyers to say, we'll give you Konechny if you give us 7. I'm just not sure because, I mean, that's more or less what Ottawa just did a couple years ago with Alex DeBrincat, who was younger and one could argue better, or at least younger, and it blew up in their face anyway. He ended up not wanting to stay. So I don't know if Ottawa does that deal. It's a fair ask. I don't think it's unreasonable, especially if Konechny reveals to them through back channels that he would be interested in signing a new contract with Ottawa rather than just being a rental. But my view has always been, I think the Flyers are going to re-sign Konechny. I think teams are calling on him. From what I've heard, teams have called on Travis Konechny. They are called up Briere and been like, hey, Danny, how's that contract negotiation going? If it goes south, let us know. We'd be interested. But I don't think they're at a point where they want to do it. And I think I've said this on the show before. Generally speaking, and this isn't a hard, fast rule, but generally speaking, when the team wants to re-sign a player and the player wants to re-sign with the team, generally speaking, a deal gets worked out. And I think that's the case in this situation.
Yeah, that's been our take on the situation for months now. I'm just looking at, is there a path? Yeah, I think so, but I don't think they're going to be taking it. Real quick, have you heard anything? I just trending on Twitter, Zegras, Perfetti, Rossi, and who was the fourth one? There's another guy.
Whoever everyone on Twitter is talking about because we're bored.
Any news on any rumors? Have you heard anything about the tires being kicked on anything?
Not really. I mean, the Flyers are talking to a lot of teams.
Yeah,
it seems like the popular one going around over the last couple days, I think because Dave Pagnotta has been really pushing it, is that the Flyers are shopping Joel Farabee. I am not convinced that is fully accurate. They are certainly listening on Joel Farabee, but I would question the framing that like this is a Kevin Hayes, like we need to trade Joel Farabee. Like they are listening, and Joel Farabee is certainly available because I think there are some legitimate concerns that were raised, not necessarily in terms of the relation with Torts, but just some legitimate concerns that were raised in the organization due to his struggles over the final couple months of the year. And I think that's fair. But I don't think the Flyers have gone into this offseason with the belief that we need to trade Joel Farabee. And I don't want people to get that impression. I could see him get moved, but I don't think it's anywhere near certainty.
All right. I think that will do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with a full show tomorrow at 1 p.m. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Before we get out of here, Friday, June 28th. That's this Friday. It's the Michkov party. Listen, yes, exactly like I tweeted earlier. The Flyers will make some draft picks at some point. But this is now the Michkov party. We're going to have a live show. It's going to be a great time. Kelly's going to be there. JP's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Charlie's going to be in Vegas. But the whole rest of the crew will be around for the draft party and Michkov celebration this Friday. Chickies and Pete's starting at 6 p.m. Going to be freaking awesome. Make sure you come on out. There's going to be food. There's going to be drink specials, all sorts of giveaways, door prizes, a raffle of some kind. It's going to be a great freaking time. That's what I can tell you. So Chickies in South Philly on Packer Ave this Friday, June 28th, starting at 6. Broad Street Hockey and PHLY teaming up for the Flyers party of the summer. All right, that'll do it for us.
Bill, before we go, just wanted to point something out because I have gotten some questions from people about this. Yes, we are aware that the Flyers are having a party at the same venue. It is not the same party, but I suspect there will be spillover. You are correct to come to the Broad Street Hockey PHLY party at Chickie's on Packer near the stadiums. We are aware the Flyers are doing something. It seems like the Flyers thing is much smaller, though, and it seems a little bit more focused on like season ticket holders or something, whereas we are open to everyone. So
open every their thing is in play too. We're in the back bar, the bookbinders bar. So it's like there's an entire Chickies and Pete's in between the two parties, but it's going to be a fucking celebration. I bet you there's some spillover. I bet you some people at the one party and maybe some creatures of some kind perhaps are going to spill over. I mean, our fans are creatures, but you know what I'm talking about.
In the good way.
Just come on out, man. Whether you go to that party, our party, you're just there to drink and watch the draft, whatever, come on out. All right, that's it. My name's Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Stay loose and sexy, Philly.